The horse is here.
All right, hey everyone, welcome back to more Flesh and Bad. And apologies in advance. I've actually been kind of feeling a little bit under the weather, so in place of my normal beautiful face, you're going to see my little Marlin chibi or whatever. But yeah, I'm PNG tubing today, so apologies. But yeah, feeling a little bit under the weather. But today we're gonna be playing some Marlin, so kind of feeling good enough to at least record again, which is nice. And I've got some new ideas for at least the upcoming meta. So the big meta change is that we just saw Verdant's LL, which was keeping down a lot of the kind of like Guardian decks, right? So I think with the new meta shifts, we're kind of expecting a lot more kind of like, for lack of a better term, like blocky kind of heavy decks, block slop. Maybe some Victor also kind of popping up here and there. I think Victor is probably one of the most one of the decks to probably benefit the most from Verdant's leaving, because he does have a lot of really good equity into aggro, and then also just like really decent kind of a fatigue game plan with both like Miller's Grindstone and also just like Visit the Golden State and stuff like that. So Victor's poised to be, I think, a really good deck. I think there are also, a couple other decks that kind of benefit, just like some of like the fatigue decks like Arachne. And then Marionette probably also sees a little bit of a decline, I'm imagining. Again, this is all kind of speculation, but I think a lot of the meta is actually going to start to warp around Victor, which is going to be very funny. So anyways, Victor, before I think we were pretty confident in Victor, but with recent Victor developments, it seems like they've actually kind of figured out the matchup, or they figured out like a pretty good setup into Marlin. So a lot of the kind of better Victor lists are running staunches, but there's so much Victor variety that actually kind of becomes hard to sideboard for Victor. So some Victors will play a little bit more aggressive, like have the pummels, have the big disruptive on hits. Some will play a little bit more defensively, have like the staunches. So it was very, very hard to figure out like what exactly you're supposed to sideboard in Victor. But again, we're gonna try to do our best today. I think after playing a couple of games in Victor, I think like the best plan is maybe to do some combination of riches and authority. I don't know if you fully need the remembrance unless you're expecting like a full-on staunch Victor, which maybe that's just the best variant. So you run that anyways. But I think like the most important thing is just to try to kill them before you kind of get to that fatigue end game, right? That's what we're gonna try to do today. Again, we want to just kind of have like the best Victor plan, because I think that's going to be one of the more represented decks. And to kind of also try to counter Victor, we do have the Ripple ways, which can help stop some of the physical mainstay. The one thing it doesn't stop is Riches, which is still pretty annoying. So if they go like Riches on a visit, that can be pretty backbreaking. But overall, I think Ripple is like a pretty decent answer into Victor. Like just turning off their visit turn, kind of slowing them down, I think is kind of worth it. And also, Ripple Away is just incidentally good into some other things. Like it's good into like Orb Weaver, Twister, as we kind of like mentioned in the kind of ProQuest video. So I think there's a lot of like interesting new use cases still for Ripple Away. It's also just like decent to like Pirates, Gravy, a lot of like other stuff that's still like I think Gravy is also like another deck that probably gains a lot from Verdant's leaving, not because like Verdant's was keeping Gravy down, but because Verdant's was keeping down the Guardians. If the Guardians come back, then the Gravy comes back. Like that's kind of the idea. So anyways, this is kind of just my attempt to kind of shift the deck to kind of counter potentially the upcoming meta. Again, the meta is shifting all the time, so my snapshot of the meta right now might differ very heavily from what the actual true snapshot ends up being like a couple weeks down the line. But anyways, we're going to continue to just experiment with Marlin, have some fun, and just kind of test out some new kind of new innovations, maybe the burdens. Most likely this burdens of the past. I doubt I'll get to resolve it today, but if I do, then maybe it stays in the deck. If I don't, then maybe this just becomes the two blue tipple, or what was the card called? Tipple, golden tipple. Sorry. Again, I'm super sick, so I can't even remember what card names are at this point. But anyways, let's go ahead and grab some games and just kind of see if we can ever actually resolve this card. Again, I'm a little bit doubtful. But anyways, again, sorry that I'm not feeling super good, so we're PNG tuning today. But yeah, let's go ahead and get some games and just kind of see how the deck goes. All right, so we got an Oscilio, and I know a lot of people have been actually asking about the Oscilio matchup. But we actually, it's kind of contradictory, but we do kind of want to go second, I think, just to kind of keep the tempo. Also, I can select. Cool. But yeah, let's go ahead and bring in our Holding Hood. I actually like to run 8 Harpoons in this matchup. I think it's a little bit contradictory to some of the kind of Marlin Council wisdom, but I do kind of still just kind of cutting down. Let's go ahead and cut our ripple ways just for the blue slot and then bring in the battering bolts. So we're running like 34 blues in this configuration, but I've actually found this is like pretty comfortable for me. Oh, we should also be running Honeyhood, but that's my bad. Not the end of the world here. We didn't have like a super premium arsenal. I guess like Bluefin here is like the best arsenal target. But generally it's like pretty good to have like the Honeyhood just with your red harpoons. Just being able to like load one super early is quite nice. All right, so they're sending a mind warp at us. So the question here is, do I even care about the mind warp? I think the answer is no, right? I'm just gonna take 3 and let them kind of fix my hand here. This next hand's maybe whatever, but not the end of the world. So let's hope we hit a blue off the top because that's going to let us basically send our CNC and then Arsenal Codex. Again, Codex is sometimes a little bit of a liability in this matchup. And I'm halfway tempted to throw the hook here, but I know some Oscilios do run sync below, so I think 9 is just a little bit too unsafe. Let's go ahead and just send 9. Again, I think if you want to get greedy, you probably could just throw the hook here. Kind of very much depends on, I guess, what the Oscilio is kind of doing. The 1 gold definitely could make a difference this game. It looks like they do have the Seduce Secrets, but so Seduce Secrets typically means that they're probably not on reacts because they're running a bit higher of an instant density. It seems like they're going to basically just kind of turbo cycle here. For what it's worth, they do know that our hand is Codex of Frailty, so they're probably going to look pretty heavily for maybe a wobble to try to counter that. Again, we can't really play around wobble all the time, unfortunately. Card is very hard to play around. But based on their configuration, it looks like they're kind of like the more all-in kind of like instance version of Oscilio, which means that more likely than not, we should start just kind of YOLO hooking. So I want to be careful about getting too greedy on this hand. So I actually want to kind of set up a blue in the bin just so that we can kind of use our trench at some point. And this does also prevent them from just like playing like CLV and drawing a bunch of cards. So if their answer here is CLV, I think it does make a fair bit of sense to block. But we'll see. It looks like they're just going to set up some sigils and maybe hit us with an arcane spell at the end of it. Looks like they don't have a sigil in the yard, so their etchings is at least a little bit worse. All right, so here's where we hope that they don't have wobble. I guess we can just hope that they, or actually, we probably shouldn't play this. Yeah, we probably shouldn't play that. I think we're actually, to play around wobble the best, what we're supposed to actually do is this. Right, so battering and the shallow on top are both good. I think we're actually bottoming the shallowing just so we have the battering. So we could actually set ourselves up with a cheating in Arsenal, but I don't actually know how much that really matters, like if we are getting wobbled here. I guess we might as well play it and pretend like they don't have it. But if they do have it, obviously it's going to be pretty rough. I had no real way to play around it from our side. Like, there's no reason to like not go for the Codex. But unfortunately, it looks like they don't have the wobble, so we do get to play the game. And since they've shown themselves to be kind of the more instant Oscilio, I'm going to try to actually go for the hook on this. Generally 9, I think, is like a little bit unsafe, but if you can go for 12, it's a little bit safer. The one thing that I will note here is that because we're kind of leading on these shallow water shark harpoons, these are kind of like, I don't know, the disruption on these sometimes just like does not line up, which is kind of what we're seeing here against these Sigil Brilliance. So if they have the Gun and Flush combo here, we're pretty close to dead, if not just dead on board. But that's fine. You live by the Oscilio, you die by the Oscilio. We still got at least a little bit of health to work with, but maybe looking like we're in somewhat dire straits here. Okay, we do at least get some gold generation flowing, so again, our motto is going to be to try to just kill them here. We do have the Ponder token, so setting up the Battering Bolt in Arsenal is definitely pretty good, especially if they can't find the combo right away. All right, 6-card Oscilio hand. Let's see what they can do here. All right, there's the Gone Flash combo. Fortunately, we did set up our blue, so we at least get to turn on our trench, which is kind of nice. And again, we could try to go for like a CLV here. or like if they could try to go for CLV, but I actually think so. Assuming that they have CLV in hand, we actually shouldn't use our quick dodge flexors just yet. And the reason is if they want to bounce the Gauntlet Flash, I think they have to play the CLV first, right? So we should take the 3 and then try to quick dodge basically on the other chain links, I think. All right, looks like Gauntlet Flash is coming back to hand. So we got 4 more. Okay, current funnel is actually not too bad for us because we can nice and cleanly cover that with the quick dodge here. Oh, they haven't actually used their Greaves yet. So this might not even be the Greaves turn. They maybe just have the kind of like nuts Oscilio draw. My hope here is that we can at least make the best use out of our quick dodge here. And then maybe just try to keep them off using their Greaves with our battering bolts, hopefully. It looks like they're going to play out Gonna Flash one more time, and then maybe, like, best case scenario, they go for, like, a shock here. So let's actually go for kind of interesting position. If 2 sigils out, so the wobble actually gets kind of scary on the trophy shot now. So I think I'm going to just try to battering bolt them back to back. Let's go ahead and throw the big game trophy shot just to kind of preserve the life total just a little bit here. Worst case scenario is they have like a huge shock, or maybe they just have like another Gauntlet Flash in hand that they want to try to set up. So I'm going to hopefully try to make this a little bit painful for them and just make sure that they hopefully can't try to combo us through double sigil. I'm hoping that this battering bolt is at least mildly annoying for them. But yeah, this is a pretty hot start from the Oscilio end. Again, double sigil by turn 3. I guess, oh my god, this is triple sigil by turn 3. I'd say this is pretty good. Looks like they're going to play these out, which means at least if they do have another gun on a flash, then it's not going to be as good. It looks like they're just pop the Greaves. Okay, so maybe their hand is actually non-instant. So we got the Mind Warp, Blast. So at least this is like a bad hand in terms of popping off. That being said, they can still cycle the Comet Storm Shock, and they can also cycle once more on their turn. So we're not quite safe just yet. For what it's worth, the Sigil Brilliances are both leaving, though, so they can't bounce the Sigils one more time, at least. Alright, but this is probably going to be the turn here. Be very surprised if this wasn't Lightning Group's turn. Like, it kind of feels like their arsenal might just be the Gauntlet Flash one more time here. Alright, but we got Amp 3 on the Bindings, which is pretty good. Nice thing about this hand is we do have the Throw Caution, but since we know about the Mind Warp in hand, it's pretty likely that we might need to use that for that. Wobble discard is nice to see. I'm kind of curious what they end up going for here, because they do have 2 arcane spells in hand in the form of the Comet Storm Shock as well as the Mind Warp. So I think I'm just supposed to say no blocks to this, because we're most likely probably going to end up getting Mind Warp at some point this turn. Right, so there's CLV, which is why we did not block on the first chain link, so they're just going to bounce it back to hand probably. And I guess it's CLV kind of showing itself to be a little bit awkward. Or did they bounce it back to hand? No, I guess they just chose not to. Maybe they have like a second one here or something. Because they do have to... The Gauntlet Flash is already triggered. So now they either have to have another Gauntlet Flash. Okay, Somersault would actually work. Yeah. So they did have the plan here, but that does mean that they're not getting another activation off the Somersault. Is at least a little bit good for us. That being said, we're still probably getting comboed here. The Blast can bounce the CLV, but the CLV will not actually draw additional cards, so this is basically just representing another 4 damage. Which is fine. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take some more. Again, I think our win condition here is basically just hitting them with a battering bolt, hopefully. So I'd like to try to keep 3 cards in hand, I think. All right, here's the Comet Storm Shock, which I think they do have to pitch for here. So pitching Yellow Blast and then finishing on the Mind Warp. It should be pretty good. So this is like kind of like a little bit of a whatever combo turn. So the warp is coming in for +5. There's no real way we cover this, so I don't think there's any real reason to throw the Throw Caution. I think I just want to try to keep as much damage here as possible. We're going to go ahead and pop the Quiver just to preserve our life total just a little bit higher. Stay out of random Oscilio range. But let's go ahead and actually... So the catch of the day would threaten lethal here, which I think we're going to just go for. Debating actually whether or not I want to try to set up a Goldfin in Arsenal, but I don't think that's actually worth it at this point. Let's just try to hit them with another Battery Bolt. Again, their combo turn was kind of awkward from their end. Like, that triple Sigil, but like, feels like their combo turn just like did not line up super well. Mainly because I think they had the Comet Storm Shock in hand as well as the Wobble. Okay, but this is great for us. So we're coming in for 9. They had to play out Sigil, and then they're just left with a Gone in a Flash here, which is perfect. The one thing is that the Gone in a Flash, if they did want to play it out here, could threaten the CLV trigger, but looks like they're not going to go for that. I believe here we're just supposed to try to threaten the Shallow Water. Should basically be lethal. I don't think there's any, like, if they play out 3 Sigils and try to wobble me, I don't think that's reasonable. Yeah. Hopefully this Shallow Water Shark Harpoon will maybe do something this time. The last 2 times we cast it, not so good, but this time maybe it will actually do something. Okay, lots of instants here. So I think this is actually kind of an interesting look at, I guess. So I think there are kind of 2 schools of thought with the Oscilios. Like, some of them are on reacts, but I think like more common is that they're just kind of like on this all instance build to try to make their combo turn a little bit bigger. So I think if they're on kind of like this kind of plan, it's a lot more likely that you can just like start YOLO hooking. Even on like 9, I think it's like pretty safe. But yeah, I think they had like a really good start there. They just kind of petered out in their combo turn, which is kind of what you need sometimes against Sicilian. It looks like their wobbles also were not super good. Like, how many wobbles were they actually on? Okay, they're on all 3 wobbles. They just didn't see them at the opportune times there, which is a little bit unfortunate. But their Arsenal, kind of like the stuff they were able to play out of Arsenal actually lined up super well for them. So kind of like an interesting look at the Oscilio matchup again. This matchup is very, very swingy. So if they have like the double sigil start, you'll often lose. But overall, I think it's still like pretty good for us. Don't forget to run Honing Hood though if you are going second. I do think it does kind of improve the win rate pretty substantially. But yeah, let's go ahead and see if we can get another. Right, to get some nice good Victor practice here. So what do we want into Victor? Generally, we want to. Oh, do I not even have the board for it? I can't remember if it's first or second. I believe it's second though. At least that's how I would probably board. Let's go ahead and run our base of the mountain, and then I like to bring like the mini fatigue package into Victor. This is actually what the Ripple Aways are for in the deck currently. We could also consider the Remembrance, which I think is reasonable. A lot of Victors are on Staunch, which is kind of a newer development. Let's go ahead and run it like this, kind of see how it goes. Again, I think I like starting with Cod here. Ooh, this hand does not block too well here. So looks like they're not really on the fatigue plan here. I'm debating just cashing in space for just a little bit of extra health. We do have the option, though, of sending potentially a King Kraken for 13 on the next turn. His hand is, like, pretty rough, though. Yikes. I think we are just giving base, though, because it's pretty hard to get base value out of Victor normally. So if we can, like, stave off, what, like 5-6 damage, that maybe slows the game down just a little bit here. And since we know that they're not on the fatigue plan, I think it actually kind of makes sense to go ahead and just filter these away. Try to look for our King Sharks or something better to kind of load on turn 1. Yeah, kind of an interesting play, but I think it makes a fair bit of sense. Okay, let's go ahead and try to send... Let's send here. They don't have an Arsenal currently, so this kind of leads me to want to try to set this up. But I guess Riches will refresh our gold, which is pretty nice here, and threaten their gold, which is also great. So the Elephant will have to do. Again, this is probably not going to be disruptive unless they manage to draw both of the, what's that card called? I can like picture the card. I can a Golden Sun. I can never remember the name of like certain cards. Again, also I'm kind of like sick, so you have to forgive me. But at least this is kind of nice here. Again, we're not threatening like real disruption, but we're setting an arsenal. We have our gold already set up. We'll make another gold here. So maybe are we looking at a sync blow? Okay, we do just get to steal the gold back, which is quite nice. So drawing the thunk, and then we have a visit. Yep. So this is looking like a pretty good hand from their side. That being said, the visit not get a ton of value. Okay, but they do get their visit set up. Fortunately, it looks like there's no disruption in their hand. That being said, they are drawing a card off the visit here. But stealing one of their gold does feel quite nice. At least slows the game down considerably. That being said, first gold main estate, turn one can be a little bit rough. I think next turn we're going to just try to set the King Shark as arsenal again. One thing we do have to play around with Victor is Test of Iron Grip, but I think if we have the opportunity to try to arsenal King Shark, it's probably not worth blocking with it. And I think more than anything, I probably just want to try to go for a trophy shot here. This also, not blocking early kind of leaves us open to maybe blocking a CNC if they did draw that as the follow-up here. I believe they still have just a Macho, or they had a Cranial Crush in their hand. Oh, did they? Oh, they bottomed the Macho with the E-Strike. That makes sense. Okay, so we have 3 might set up. We're taking 4, 29. They do have 3 might set up for next turn, which is pretty good. They also don't have an arsenal, which is pretty rough. So this shallow water shark harpoon not doing it again. This card is actually kind of mid to night. Like so when this card lines up, it's so good. But when this card doesn't line up, it's so bad. But anyways, we'll continue on. Let's go ahead and just try to. So they have 6 here. I guess the question is, are we playing against a more aggro Victor? I guess it's still never safe to block just because they're probably on some number of clash cards. So again, stealing their gold doesn't seem like a super reasonable thing to go for here. Yeah, so I think we're just unfortunately sending 13 here. 13 damage is 13 damage, but not very exciting when we can't steal their gold, and we're also not really threatening any real meaningful on hit here. The biggest thing we're trying to dodge here is Test of Iron Grip, which if they have, but I think trying to hold on to the King Shark does make a fair bit of sense. All right, they do whiff the first tranche, with they can re-roll if they want to, but bottoming a Test of Iron Grip is pretty good for us. So drawing into a King Shark is also quite nice. They're only keeping a 2-card hand here. Right, fortunately, it's a CNC, but we can actually, like, we're losing the King Shark, but we have the Codex as backup here, so not really the end of the world. Kind of almost like just taking 3 here. We know they're drawing the Test of Iron Grip on top. So it means we probably just want to lose the King Shark, a port side just to refresh the gold and try to steal one of their gold. I guess we're actually like never stealing their gold though, right? Yeah, not really. We'll still just end up doing this though, I think. It's pretty unlikely that we're stealing gold if we're just sitting like King Shark for 10 next turn. Just because we know they're drawing the test on top. But again, losing the King Shark's not actually a big deal because we have the Codex at least. What do we want to do here now? I don't want to just maybe preserve the tunic. So a couple of ways we can kind of think about this. So if we port side, we draw another card, but then we don't have the fodder to discard for Codex, which means we have to use tunic. The alternative play is we can port side draw. But we do have a fair number of buffs in the deck. We still have a couple 0 costs. I actually maybe like doing the draw play here. Because we can maybe just Codex discard what we draw if it's kind of mid. So we could gamble on the salvage. Our draws have been not super blue heavy, it looks like, from our graveyard, although we have been pitching a fair bit. So we can turn over the gold to tip and just refresh the gold. And then like discard. Kind of an interesting spot. Alright, let's go ahead and just see floor salvage here. Kind of a weird line, like maybe there's a world where we don't. I guess it's kind of like the same. We might as well just like get the free hook activation just in case. Oh, we could actually turn over their CNC. which would leave them only with E-Strike as the target. That's kind of interesting, but the only problem with that is that in our play, we don't have like the fodder to discard unless we go to 0 gold, which I don't really want to do. Yeah, I think we're just turning over gold to tip here. Wrecking Marlin. We are giving them back a CNC, but it's not the end of the world here because we don't even know if we're really. I guess we are keeping our soul with the ponder. Kind of interesting. But again, if they do CNC us, again, not the worst thing ever. Discarding Golden Sun. So we know they have the flash card in their hand still. For what it's worth, we do have 5 armor to at least throw in front of the CNC, which is kind of nice. Right, Ripple away, probably not useful next turn. Catch also probably not useful. Let's go ahead and just try to draw towards our power cards like 3 Oak Codex. And then we did make a goal to get the hook. So they might have to give us armor here. They may have to give us like quick dodge or something. That'd be kind of nice. Yes, looks like it's maybe Tunic quick dodge here. Right, they have test on top, which is great. So it means they either have to reroll or something else. Okay, they did win this one because Rouse is technically higher cost than shifting. So we know their hand is Rouse. They have to use their Tunic here, so their armor is basically gone. I guess they have 2 kind of on the back. Then most likely here, their crackback is going to be probably CNC. Hopefully not with a pummel behind it. That would probably be worst case scenario. But let's go ahead and Arsenal the cheating again. We might just end up throwing it away depending on what our hand looks like. Ooh, visit plus riches. Oh, did we want to keep the ripple? Maybe we did. Ooh, did I get punished for bottoming that? Maybe I did. Oh no. I guess for what it's worth, we can't stop the riches or like this goal. Like we can't actually stop anything here. If anything, we'd just be stopping 1 gold plus the 1 might token basically, which I guess is not really worth it. Riches unfortunately kind of like negates the efficacy, I guess, of the ripple ways, huh? Okay, so this is gonna be looking pretty good from their side. So we can play cheating from Arsenal. If they have the pummel here, that'd also be kind of disgusting, right? All right, so we know they have Rouse in hand, right? We haven't seen that yet. So we could actually just give up the Tunic here, play cheating, try YOLO for a blue off the top. And then we're a little sad if we don't hit it. I think we still probably have to kind of go for it. Again, I think that this is kind of like a very slim margins turn. Like if we lose the cheating, I don't know, it feels pretty bad. All right, let's go for the cheating. All right, we really need a blue here. Blue super badly. For what it's worth, it looks like they're on a more brutal. It looks like they're on a more kind of non maybe more aggressive victor list. But this is rough. So now we basically don't have the resources to play anything, which is brutal. Maybe we were supposed to give up the cheating, but I guess the cheating still bricks. Like even if we do lose it, I think we're still breaking there, right? All right, unfortunate set of draws. For what it's worth, this could still theoretically trigger against Victor, but pretty unlikely to. It looks like we got test here. Seems pretty good. We'll go up to 5 gold here, or 6 gold, unfortunately. But no real way to stop that. So here comes Browse. They're running Ripple away themselves, which is kind of interesting. It looks like they're not even on any real D-Reacts here, so I think I'm just supposed to save for whatever the kind of backhand here is here. We can maybe just try to time walk them with the King Shark. That's maybe our best bet here, but seems kind of unlikely. Again, the gold pile here is definitely a little bit concerning. All right, so got 2 Codexes in the deck and 2 3 Oaks, so I'm kind of fine just blocking a little bit here. Again, we're kind of just really hoping that the King Shark can help us kind of take the tempo next turn. And since they're so low on armor and the game state is so close, I think I'm actually going to try to hook this. Again, We get punished by like double block card, but how many blocks have we actually seen? We've seen all 3 test of strengths. We know they're on test of iron grips, which they bottomed, and they're also on the trounces. I think I'm actually just gonna go for the hook here. If they had 2 block cards, we'd probably lose the game, but I think we're losing this game in the spot anyways, so we might as well try to go for the win here. And if we can steal their gold, fairly quick good. Alright, looks like we were correct, at least to assume that. Oh, some nice gold here. We have another visit. Okay. Kind of curious why they didn't go for the ripple here. Interesting. I think we're supposed to take... So the ripple here is awkward, but if they go for the gold main estate off Tunic and they don't draw the blue here, they could actually end up in a situation where they can't cast these spinals. I think we're actually just supposed to take the ripple away there, as funny as that is. Again, if they do manage to find a way to cast spinal, it might not be at the end of the world here, but they're giving us a little bit of breathing room here. Again, I think that was kind of the turn where we just had to go for hook. All right, looks like they're pitching a spinal, which I think is fair. They're maybe just going to try to go for fist here. I think this is going to be the turn where we're going to try to buy back the tempo a bit. All right, so we're going to take 4, go to 6, and then hope to draw some good stuff here. So we at bare minimum need a blue off this gold. Right, that's at least a reroll. All right, need just like one good draw here. Could actually, does Big Game Trophy Shot do it? No, it doesn't, right? There's no way to like cast Big Game Trophy Shot profitably here, I think. So in that case, we should crack one more gold. Right, Murderous Rebel is good. So now we can overpitch the Trophy Shot, beating Codex. Garbage Shark. So we know their arsenal is spinal, so if we can maybe snipe their blues one more time, we could be in it, but it's still looking like pretty dire here. Again, I think they saw their visits like pretty opportunely. Like they basically saw all 3 by turn 6, which is I think above average. Again, we also did bottom the ripple that one turn, so I'm wondering if that was maybe a mistake, but I think given the information we had, maybe it was still correct. All right, so belief here. We know their arsenal stole the spinal. So I think we just want to put them off playing the spinal one more time. Or I guess we could actually force them to play it through the frailty. Is maybe also reasonable. I guess I'd rather them cast... I'd rather them spend... Like, spinal is actually kind of damage and inefficient, so I guess taking the boulder drop actually makes a fair bit of sense, right? Kind of talked myself into that. Wonder if that's actually correct. Now coming in for 12, this means we can now throw the full hand in front of this. So we are losing our 3 oak, which is unfortunate, but there's no real way to keep this hand and also do something. So functionally just taking 1 here, which is not really the end of the world. So going to be very dependent on what their next hand kind of is. See if they kill us. Like if we can like block 6 here, we're in pretty good shape. But it looks like unfortunately the macho will start the game and then finish the game. So unlucky there. I guess we'll turn over the golden sun for BM. But yeah, the Victor matchup has gotten quite a bit scarier, and this isn't even, I think, the scarier variant of Victor, where they're running like more of like kind of the staunches and everything. Like this is kind of just more aggro, kind of looks like. Again, I think they had some really good stuff lined up for them that game, just like super early visits, and then just the Rich is also lining up at kind of a pretty rough time. I think for what it's worth, the one turn we bottomed the Ripple was like pretty rough for us, but I don't actually think the Ripple was really doing that much on that visit. So I think this matchup is one you kind of have to be a little bit more careful about. Like, I think there's maybe a different way you have to like approach this matchup now, where you have to play like a little bit more kind of fatiguey. But their start was like pretty hot. Like, if you actually look at this deck, they're also not running Pummel, which is kind of good information. So maybe the trick with this matchup is I need to play it a little bit slower. I'll see if I can actually maybe try to find another Victor game where I can kind of like play a little bit slower and see if that maybe works out a little bit better for us. But yeah, pretty good Victor start. So yeah, that's how the Victor matchup goes sometimes. But yeah, let's go ahead and see if we can get another. Got another Victor. Let's try to tighten up the gameplay for this one. So let's run our base, and then they're gonna put us on first, which I think makes a fair bit of sense here. I've seen a lot of Victors that aren't even running reacts lately, especially on Talishar. So I'm thinking I'm actually cutting a tie. I feel like the Victor matchups are super complicated because if there are on like the more like staunch heavy version, I feel like the Ataya does some work. If they're just on like normal aggro vector, like I really don't like fat decking very much into them. So I think I'm just boarding in riches, and that's it. And let's see if this maybe performs a little bit better. It looks like they're running maybe 64 here. So let's go ahead and maybe just try to go for the gold steel early here, turn 1. So let's go ahead and cycle the port side. We can throw this shallow water that's going to be quite good for us. And it is. So we can threaten their gold here early, and they don't have the block cards. This is going to actually be quite nice for us. That being said, they could have any number of D-React staunches. It looks like they are boarding a little bit higher than the kind of last victor we played against. So this could actually be kind of looking like maybe more kind of like the D-React oriented version of it. Right, but we do at least get some armor here, which is quite nice. So they will get to get their test online. Yeah, pretty good, but at least we're chewing through a little bit of the armor there. So not too bad, and they're drawing a headbutt for the next hand. So we have 3 unknown cards and a headbutt. All right, early visit. Unfortunately, no ripple away, so that's painful. But we'll try to come back from this again. I feel like every time I play against a vector, it's like just turn 1 visit and I lose the game, which is kind of rough, but sometimes just is what it is. Okay, so we have the Miller's Grindstone coming in. I would like to. The issue with the Sunken Treasure is we just do not have the target for it yet, because if we turn over our 1 Codex target, then that's obviously quite bad. So what is our plan here? I think we're actually supposed to just not block this, right? Not block, discard the C4 salvage, arsenal the Codex. Feels bad, but I think it's correct. For what it's worth, it's funny if they do hit a yellow off the top here. I guess neither player wins, which if they did hit like the yellow off the top, that actually would be funny. All right, so let's go for the play. I guess we're actually going to probably discard the elephant just for a little bit more flexibility, probably. Oh, we actually do know that they have the riches in hand, which I guess is not going to matter too much. But yeah, your super early gold start here is going to be really painful. But let's see if we can try to weather it. Maybe trying to be a little bit more defensive is kind of the strat. So let's go ahead and let's pitch the. We want to discard the yellow fin here, just to have the extra option. Codex. Again, not super amazing here. Oh, we can at least maybe threaten the arsenal. You connect with our Harpoon here, which is quite nice. We get a headbutt, which I guess was maybe their arsenal for the last turn. Kind of funny. But let's hope that our Codex next turn is gonna be good. I feel like every time I draw riches, also in this matchup, like this card almost feels like a liability in this matchup, despite generating gold. I have to maybe like play a game like without it, but like every time I draw this card, my opponent has like 4 mites on the board, and I feel kind of dumb. Maybe also just bad variance or whatever, but I feel like this card has been kind of mildly underperforming in this matchup. All right, coming in for 12. I mean, they could just send another shallow water shark harpoon. If they have the pummel, they have the pummel. I don't really think there's much we can do from our end other than just kind of take it. I mean, we could just use base to block 12 and then have nothing to do on our turn. Yeah. Maybe we do want to take like a more defensive approach to this matchup and just kind of like have riches out of the deck and maybe just try to block through this. It feels so weird though. I think this is one of those matchups where I just like I used to know what to do, and now I like the Victor decks have like I don't even think they've changed all that much. It just feels like the play pattern's changed like very drastically. Let's go ahead and maybe try to get greedy here a little bit with this trophy shot. If we draw right off the top, it's probably gonna be pretty rough, but I think we still go for it. Okay, yellow is acceptable because it at least means that we can now fire this. Although pitching another Codex feels I know a little bit rough. But this is still maybe fine here. Hey, we got to do all the button clicking, which is really nice. And then if they don't have a D-React in Arsenal here, it's quite good. And we also got the Riches pitch, so our hook was free. All in all, I'd say this is pretty good. Unlikely that they can cover this with just armor unless they have some form of D-React here. But a lot of pictures have just like not been running reacts into me. They've just been like kind of running a bit more of like an aggro package. I do think that there are some better victor lists that are running like staunches and stuff, which are a little bit rougher. But this is hopefully looking promising for us here. So we do connect again, which is great. Get their pummel at Arsenal, fantastic. Okay, I couldn't probably have asked for a better turn here, but we're still not quite out of the woods yet. All right, we do need to find our King Shark, so I guess we found both of them together, which is always great. We don't have the risk of getting pummeled here. So I'm almost kind of tempted to just take a little bit of a value line here and just use the base for functionally like +1. What I will say is like the base has also not felt super like it sometimes lines up quite well, but like a lot of times it just like also does not line up. I don't know. This is like also another card I'm kind of like rethinking this matchup. Like maybe I might even just try it with the other kind of boots and just see if it performs a little bit better. But we do have a lot of gold to work with next turn, which is at least nice, and then we can kind of block the unhit here, which is I think a little bit relevant. But I think we're at least keeping some decent tempo here. And our opponent has not resolved like multiple visits, which I think has been definitely in favor. So let's go and just give him the 1 and then try to send King Shark with a cheating on it next turn. Feels a little bit like a weird play, but I think it makes sense from this position. Like we just really want to kind of push the advantage and don't let them set up like a big kind of like pummel turn. It looks like they're probably on a little bit more of an aggro kind of style victor given the pummels. Right, so let's go for the port side. There are blue, which is nice. I'm kind of tempted to maybe just pop some gold here and see what we can find, because if we find like a catch of the day, that could definitely be game winning. And we've seen a lot of our yellows so far. Like seen basically all of our codexes. I think we bottomed to shallow water at some point. Okay, so there's a catch. So if we can draw multiple blues back to back, I think that is maybe potentially game. But again, it's always hard to tell with these victor lists. All right, so we need one more blue here, ideally, or I'll even take like another buff. All right, ripple away is great. So that will be our blue. So we're sending in 15. We have not seen a staunch from them. We do not know if they're running staunch. So I'm very, very tempted to hook here. We have exactly 5 armor on board. So they would need... there are a lot of things that actually punish us. I think we're not supposed to hook here. As crazy as that sounds, I think 15's like not safe, or it doesn't feel quite safe. I guess actually it's 6 armor on board. We've not seen a ton of their clash cards other than the Test of Iron Grip. Yeah, I think if I'm connecting with this King Shark, I'm winning the game anyway, so I shouldn't really be giving the hook here. Because I feel like if they do manage to block this, which is semi-likely given the composition of the deck, then we could basically just be... I think what I maybe am learning from this is I need to take a bit more of like a tempo approach to Victor instead of just like kind of just doing I guess just like value math. Like it feels like you kind of have to like take on turn off turn against Victor, and that maybe helps a little bit more. Right, there's the Test of Iron Grip, which is fine. All right, pummel on top. Good info for next turn. If we can ruin their hand here, we're in obviously great shape, and this is fantastic. So this is why I think we didn't hook here, because if we are connecting with this in a profitable way, like we're winning the game kind of anyways, which is pretty nice. Again, I think this is what we really need in this matchup, is just have a really good King Shark turn, kind of back to back. So now we're sitting on back at 6 gold. Our opponent is basically time walked, and then we can maybe hopefully keep up the pressure next turn. So the pummel in hand is actually really good info. How many visits have we seen? We've only seen the 1, so it's semi-likely that this will actually hit, but let's not count on it. I'd like to ideally find a more disruptive harpoon here. I might try to draw towards here with the catch. Like if we can find either Codex, I think we bottomed the Codex, right? So Codex is not out. If we can find one of our King Sharks, I think that would probably be best. Or I even take a Redfin harpoon. Bluefin, lots of good harpoons here. Ooh, Redfin's actually basically perfect here, right? Yeah, so we're gonna go for the Redfin here. This is great. So it means we can probably put them off sending the pummel. Or at least pretty likely that we are. Let's go ahead and I think overpitch our golden tip here just because it's not really doing us a ton of favors being the 2 block in case they do have some other kind of destruction they're going to send next turn. And let's go ahead and just send in with the red fin. Again, we're probably going to see that the pummel will block here, but hey, if we at least take it out of their hand, that's like one less way that they can kind of kill us. Again, we haven't seen the other two visit the Gold Mine Estates, but I don't think sending the Kraken there is really worth it unless we're trying to kill them. And again, we still have a bit of armor to work through, so I'm not super hopeful that that's going to connect. I think this is basically an ideal scenario. If we get 2 reds out of them here, I'm pretty happy with this. And again, maybe there was like some argument to throwing the hook on that, but I don't know if that's still worth it there. It's always really hard to tell when to hook against Victor just because of their fridge. Okay, so it looks like their next turn is probably just going to be a Golden Sun turn, which is fine. At least they're not throwing the pummel in front of it, which is kind of what we want. And we get to have a nice Kraken for next turn. Burdens of the Past continuing to be quite funny here. Not been super relevant to the matchups we've been kind of really been playing tonight, which is kind of just like the problem with this card. Like I'd almost rather this just be Tipple just to threaten more gold generation. I think that's kind of what I'm basically discovering now is that this card is just better off being Tipple. Kind of like the Tipples and the Ripples. Feels like those two together can maybe form like a pretty good Victor plan. I have a King Shark on top, which I want to draw, but I also like kind of don't want to draw. We could crack a lot of gold here. We draw the blue, crack one more time, and hope that the card after King Shark is a blue. I feel like I want to try to set. We haven't seen any test of our grips, I guess, from their side, have we? Or no, we've seen one. So we could also just leave the King Shark on top loaded on the next turn. Yeah, it's reasonable. We top 2, I think we C4 salvage, gold the tip, leave the King Shark on top so that we play around test of iron grip, and then just try to kill them and steal their gold this turn. Again, I don't think we're killing because they do have armor to work with, but if we can at least put them off, keeping like a super wide hand to kill us, then I think that's maybe our best kind of spot here. All right, so let's go ahead and turn over their Golden Sun just in case. And then drawing the King Shark next turn should be pretty good, assuming that we do get to hold on to it here. I think I'm also going to go for the hook as we did salvage. So looking like we're in a pretty okay spot here. Again, I think the most important thing here is we have the tempo, which is really good. Oh, we are also threatening Omni State. That's great for us. Oh, and leaving the King Shark on top is also very funny for, I guess, clash purposes. So overall, kind of a funny like set of things to line up for us here. We get to take their gold. Looks like they're not even a bottom or bother with the trounce. And they're setting boulder drop next turn, but like we have 7 gold to work with. We can probably just eat the boulder drop, right? So that's probably going to be the play. And we have a huge pile of gold to work with. How many 3-oaks? We have 3 3-oaks, or two 3-oaks left in the deck. So if we do take the boulder drop, or sorry, we have 2 options basically. We can either block 6 and then try to gamble with the ripple away, which has a lot of risk to it. Or we can take the non-risky line and just accept the 7 damage, go for bottom of the Kraken, and then just crack our way to victory, which I think is probably the better play. Again, we're not being threatened by pummel here, which is great. Yeah, I think this is basically just the logical play. Kraken is bad, but this is why we didn't do the other play, I guess. All right, Golden Tip is potentially fine if we can find more blues. And 3-oak is good. So that should probably do it, unless the deck decides to like hate me for some reason and not draw the blues. But 13 should be probably pretty close to good. Right, there's our other 3 oak, which is great. So I think it probably would have worked out either way based on that set of draws, but not breaking off the red there was actually probably pretty important, right? So let's go ahead and go for the hook since we're not going to have too much left after this turn. Like we're maybe getting one more hook activation at best. I think the hook here makes sense, and then we can maybe try to keep the 3 oak for Arsenal. Wait, what did they reveal on top? Was it a is it another clash card? Maybe the hook here there was dumb. Didn't matter. None. Okay, so they drew. What did they draw? Did they hold on? I'm confused on the ordering of this. So they did that first. Just boulder drop. So they drew a boulder drop here. Oh, so they might have boulder drop for 8, but that shouldn't matter, at least with 3 of a kind. I think we're still fine here. We block 6, then 3 oak. Should be fine, right? Assuming that they can even cast the boulder drop, which is questionable. And they are cracking a bit of gold here. So if they do have pummel in ours, alright, I guess we've seen the last pummel. Maybe they're trying to go for like a macho play or something. Could be dead here. We don't, or no, we do lose to Golden Sun. Ooh, E-Strike's pretty rough. Okay. Not the end of the world though. Or oh, they're not even going getting this. Oh, that's great for us then. So in that case, we can just block. I mean, they can't do anything to pump this unless they have like a random razor reflex or something. I guess we go and give them cheating plus sunken, keep the blue. How many buffs do we have left? We have like 1 more gold to tip, 2 more catch, 1 more trophy shot. So a decent amount of buffs still left in the deck. So we can maybe just crack a little bit of gold if we want to here. I don't think they have a way to kill us here, unless I'm missing something. I'm curious why they didn't give this go again for like the extra point of damage, but I guess it depends on what their hand is. So let's go for gold crack. So we're looking for just basically any buff to throw on top of this. Shifting Tides is like kind of like a buff if you kind of think about it that way. So yeah, I think we'll stop here. We'll play the shifting and then throw the King Shark. Right. So unfortunately, we're like just a little bit of ways off that last catch of the day. We could have drawn towards it for what it's worth. So that is something to note if we do end up dying here. We are sitting in 10. They can block 3 with armor, and then they need another clash, or they need another block card here to, I think, live. They need either their Test of Iron Grips or their Last Trounce, or I think that would basically be it, right? Maybe like a D-React if they have some random ones that we haven't seen yet. Right, so there's Test of Iron Grip. Actually might want to shuffle in response to this, because the shuffle could also put a 6 on top. We're pretty likely to lose this anyways, right? So might as well go for it. So let's just grab one of each of our harpoons. All right, so we lose this, but not the end of the world. Yeah, they do have Macho on top, which could be scary. Oh, there's the first staunch, okay. So they are on staunches. They just didn't see them line up at an opportune time. All right, we still got a bit of a ways to fight here. Yeah, boulder drop is good. So we do have to give now 6 to this. I feel like the key takeaway from this game is just blocking 6 is really good. For what it's worth, we do have the shifting tides to help us maybe draw into the ability to kind of play this Redfin. Hopefully. There's a Redfin. Arsenal Goldfin here if we really wanted to, and we know they have the Macho on top at this point, right? We just need to basically prevent them from playing Macho. So I think we are in Goldfin mode at this point now. Again, this should still be lethal unless they find another React or Clash card. We saw the 1 staunch, so they might be on a few more staunches, which you have to be really careful about. This game feels at least a lot closer than some of the previous ones. I feel like it's mostly on the back of just like them not finding the visit super early. Like, I feel like that's like the key difference this game is just like we haven't let them resolve the visits quite as easily. So it looks like this is maybe quick dodge plus I don't what else could they have here? Okay, seems like we finally got them. So again, Victor is one of these matchups that I think has gotten a lot more challenging, and I don't fully understand why. I like maybe it's just that like people weren't playing Victor before because Verdance was bad, and like we didn't really know that this was a bad matchup. But I feel like the recent versions of Victor, where they're kind of just running like a lot more like a mix of pummels and also the staunches is like pretty rough. But we did end up getting there, which is pretty nice. I do think I still need to lab this matchup a bit because like you want to kind of play like a very careful game between tempo and fatigue, and I feel like a lot of the fatigue cards are kind of like liabilities in this matchup because they don't block, which is like kind of like the rough part. So like we saw in a couple of those games that like Riches was pretty bad, and like Ataya I think was also maybe bad at one point. But still some work to be done in this matchup. I think this matchup has gotten quite a bit harder, and I think we need to maybe work on it a little bit more. But at least a good learning matchup. I think it's always kind of nice to revisit some matchups which you assumed were kind of good before and maybe need a little bit more extra love. But yeah, let's go ahead and see if we can get maybe one last one. All right, get some more Victor practice, which is always good. I feel like Victor is actually like kind of poised to be one of the more better meta threats right now. So we tried Rich's last game, and I don't even think that was super necessary, but I guess we can try it again this game. Maybe boarding it up to 61 seems fair. Yeah, let's try again, something like this. This may be like some weird argument for. Also, I don't know why there's a Palantir on them. But anyways, I think there's maybe some weird argument for running Tony Hood in this matchup going second. I think it's semi-reasonable. I might need to test that a little bit more. This could actually be a quite a nice hand if we do get to go for the gold tip here. For what's worth, we actually probably shouldn't have pitched the blue pin harpoon, but I don't think it's going to matter too much here. But generally just best practice in case you like draw like another harpoon, you want to send like a king shark instead, and then you wanted to like arsenal that. I think that's like slightly better. But we do at least get to threaten gold here. That being said, they are not starting on Crown of Dominion. Maybe it leads me to believe this is more. Oh, I don't actually know what this armor setup necessarily means. Maybe they just wanted the extra kind of fridge in me, which maybe makes sense. All right, but we dodged test fire and grip, which is at least nice. We've effectively kind of blanked the effect of that. Take a choke slam, also quite nice, and getting a nice little 3 gold pile to start the game off is quite good. I feel like the victors I'm like most scared of generally are the victors that are kind of running like the Crown of Dominion starting gold just to get like visit online as soon as possible. I feel like those victors are like the scariest to me. I think we have a pretty good play here of just trying to go for another gold to tip turn. Again, this is why like gold to tip is just one of the better cards in the deck, or just like probably one of my favorite cards. Like having the yellow stat line on a buff is just really, really good. And then sometimes you just get the occasional like crazy upside, especially with the new harpoon, just generating a ton of gold. And then we also just have the kind of standard combo of just getting the gold to tip on a gold pin harpoon. But always pretty nice. I think here I'm not going to play the catch of the day and try to save it for Arsenal. That being said, we could get juiced by another test of iron grip, but unlikely that they have a second one here. Let's go ahead and go for it. In worst case scenario, we can quiver, although I guess the quiver probably wouldn't do anything. So let's just go for the catch of the day, and if we get test of iron gripped, not the end of the world. And then setting back-to-back hook activations into Victor is generally quite nice. Unfortunately, they're not starting on the Crown of Dominion, so they're like a little bit worse, but still pretty all right on the whole. So get refresher gold here, send 9, which is pretty good, and set up an arsenal. So overall, I think we're looking pretty good here. I feel like the tectonic plating to me, if it signifies anything, maybe is signifying that we don't have to worry as much about pummel. It's not like a hard and fast rule, though. They could definitely still have it, although it looks like they're not going to go for it here. So we have an interesting couple of choices here. I believe this is going to just be a little bit of a gold cracking turn. We do have our tunic up, so we can hold on to the elephant harpoon, crack 2 gold, find either blue or just a red harpoon. Both of those are pretty good fail states. Or not even fail states, but pretty good success states. And then we have a couple other success states like 3 oak and codex would both, I think, be reasonable depending on the set of draws. Yeah, I think this block makes the most amount of sense. Again, we're kind of just doing some value trading. We still need to chew through a lot of their armor, which is going to be the big concern in this game, I think. But for what it's worth, they are porting the fatigue plan, which I think is quite nice for us. So the play is going to be play catch of the day, crack gold with the port side, and just look for some action. Worst case scenario, maybe sending the elephant harpoon here. Yellowfin harpoon can surprisingly be sometimes relevant. Right, so let's crack one more gold here, either looking for blue or another relevant harpoon. Oh, actually, bluefin is actually a very nice replacement here. So that means we do get to go for kind of 10 here, which probably just eats armor more than anything, but eating armor is still value. That looks like they're maybe just going to give us, looks like they may have a couple of block cards in their hand or something. All right, so we got the Test of Iron Grip and the Trounce. Let's see what they got. All right, so we do tie the test here. They cannot reroll, or I guess they can reroll if they want to pop their Aurum. I feel like that's not worth it, right? Like, no way that's worth it. I think they just take the loss here, right? Almost assuredly. Oh, they do find a... So they bottomed... How did they bottom? They bottom... Oh, they did pop their Aurum Magus. Oh, okay. Wow, crazy. Maybe that is worth it? I don't know. Losing 3 armor feels like it maybe seems bad, but who am I to judge? Maybe it's worth. They do get their first starting gold, which is also like semi-relevant, so maybe not the worst play in the world. All right, so what do we have here? So have the boulder drop coming in. Ideal world, we want to play like the Codex. Actually, I think the play. So boulder drop. Notable thing about boulder drop, right, is that it will put the card on top of the deck. So I think a line here that seems pretty reasonable is actually just to take 8, put the 3 oak on top, and then we'll ponder into the 3 oak, which could be pretty powerful. And that would probably mean that we're probably just going to try to get the bluefin harpoon here. We're not getting pummeled, which is also quite nice. So I think we're just going to go ahead and take this damage. Again, I think against Victor, sometimes you do have to take like this on turn, off turn. But if you do see like the value lines, especially with Codex, I think you do generally kind of want to go for those. All right, so let's go ahead and use our first Codex here, and then pondering into a 3 oak, obviously. Nice little addition on top. So only question here is whether or not we go for the bluefin versus the shallow water. We haven't seen any D-reacts from them, and it doesn't look like they're necessarily on the kind of like more staunch heavy version of Victor. So theoretically, this is technically just 1 extra point of damage. That being said, there's like higher upside, or there's a higher risk in the sense that we could be getting blown out by like D-react or something. But I think I'm going to actually maybe just go for the numerically better line here. We'll see how that can work out for us. Like if this 1 point of damage maybe buys like a point of armor or something, it could be very well worth it. All right, so they do clash with us here, drawing the Clash of Bravado, which is not too big of a deal. But we still get to ponder into 3 up, which is pretty good. So not too bad on the whole. All right, a lot of our codexes are lining up in awkward ways, unfortunately. Yeah, so this is pretty unfortunate. Definitely could have asked for better draws here. I don't think what the line here is, if anything. Like, we could just block 6, give up 1 codex, and then we can either pitch the bluefin or we can either just try to pitch the codex and send the yellowfin as like our failsafe here. But like losing the access to the codexes feels so rough here. Yeah, this is not exactly, I think, the draw we were necessarily looking for, but I think it's the draw maybe that we're getting here. We could also use Base of the Mountain, but I think there might be better opportunities for Base of the Mountain. So maybe we're just going to go and give up the hook here. The new play is give up the hook, and then let's try... So there's two things we can go for here. We do have a lot of harpoons still left in the deck. So we have 1, 2. I think we pitched 2 harpoons. We have a lot of harpoons left in the deck, which means we could try to crack gold, find a red harpoon, and then try to arsenal the codex, which is maybe the best value line, although it does have a bit of a risk attached to it. There's another line where we don't, or we don't take the risky line and we just send Yellowfin, but I feel like Yellowfin's maybe not winning us the game here. So I think I like maybe trying to dig a little bit deeper for maybe a better harpoon, and this is actually going to work out perfectly. So because we found the redfin on the top, now we get to pretty safely just 3-oak here. Right, and this is at least a situation where the riches look like it might be pretty relevant if it does threaten at least a hook trigger. That being said, we're only coming in for 8 here, so not necessarily the craziest draw in the world, but still reasonable here. All right, so let's go ahead and send in for 8. And again, you might be questioning why I'm playing into Victor so much recently, but I think Victor is probably poised to be one of the better decks to kind of benefit from Verdant's leaving. So I would expect to see a lot of Victors actually at the calling level, kind of right before the kind of new set comes out. But this is actually fantastic. So we're actually putting them off the visit here, which is great for us. And I think the one downside of their setup here, oh, we also get to steal red, disgusting. It seems like the one downside of their setup here is that them not starting on the gold means that they're just not able to get their visits off as early, it seems um like they do have more fridge, but they don't actually have, it seems like, the kind of aggression they need into us, which you do kind of need to be a little bit aggressive into this deck, I think. We're poised to actually have a very good hand coming up. Oh, if they do pummel off the top, could be in danger. But I don't think we can ever play around it here, really. So we're just going to give them 6. Hope they don't have it. If they do have it, then we can take a setup turn. If they don't have it, we're actually in kind of a shape here. Bare minimum, we can just send a King Shark here. And we finally found our first Red Harpoon, which is great. So go ahead and take the value line here. I think there is a line where you can try to big game trophy shot, but the risk on that is pretty high. Like, we're going to have to burn through a lot of gold if we want to try to go for that. Because we need to go positive. So, like, assuming we pitch big game trophy shot, draw blue at the top, which is not guaranteed given how many red harpoons are left in the deck, we'd also have to hit like 2 consecutive blues to fully play on our codex. So I think the non-greed line there is to not go for big game trophy shot. But it's worth it kind of explaining that though, right? Because like I feel like a lot of players might be incentivized to maybe go for that. I'm not 100% sure, but I feel like that to me is maybe just a little bit too greedy. If I had like 7 gold, maybe I'd try to go for that, but like 4 gold, you're burning a lot of your resources to have maybe just like a +4 in the best case, right? I think I'd rather like save my gold to just kind of cycle through the deck a little bit faster, try to find kind of cards on the more important turn. I feel like knowing when to use your gold is actually like a really important skill in this deck. All right, so we do see that we have a pummel potentially coming our way. So whatever they're going to pummel, it's probably going to be from Arsenal. So I guess in this case, we should probably just take the choke slam. I'm assuming we're probably getting pummeled regardless here, but it shouldn't actually be that bad for us. Because we at least know about it, right? And knowing is at least half the battle. Boys are kind of funny, but not quite good. You know. We're just getting like Miller's Grindstone. That could be okay for us, though. Okay, so we have a Command and Conquer. So a couple of plays we could do here. The first play, so we've already used all 3 of our codexes, which is a little bit rough, which means our like King Shark is like a bit worse. So the first play is to just get CNC pummeled. So we take 9 in total, we lose our Arsenal, which is whatever, and we lose a Ripple, which is whatever. Then we load and send King Shark, which is pretty good. Alternative players we block out, but then they just Arsenal the pummel, so I think I'm just going to make them use it here. Again, pummel is kind of like one of those cards where like against some decks like RKO, you can kind of like strand them with it if they don't have like the setup. But against like Victor, they have so many pummel targets that like leaving them with the pummel is just like kind of whatever, right? So I don't really want them to keep it forward in Arsenal, so I'm just going to make them use it. Again, it's only coming in for 9, which is not like the highest pummel equity necessarily. But anyways, let's go ahead and some gold here and try to send a King Shark. Ooh, so that catch of the day is actually maybe incentivizing maybe a little bit greedy here. How many clash cards have we seen? We still have potentially 1 test of iron grip, 2 test of strengths, and maybe one or two more trounces. So that's 5 block, up to 5 block cards in total. But I think we're gonna go ahead and go for a little bit of grief here. That being said, we always have to fall back if we need to. Maybe just keep an arsenal here. So we drew the king catch of the day, which means, or we drew the king shark, which means we're probably not going to go for the green line. So let's go ahead and just try to draw one more blue. All right, so that's perfect. That will let us set up the arsenal, which is great. So good set of draws there. Let's not go for hook because it's still pretty likely that they're able to block. And we're actually kind of running out of hooked activations, but I think we maybe have like one more good hook activation before we need to like throw it away, right? I don't think we need to do it just quite yet. So most likely this is like, it seems like they maybe don't have the another. Okay, they do have a fade, which we'll cover. So I'm glad we didn't give up our hook there. I think next turn is probably going to be like the yellow hook turn because we did chew through a bit of armor. Let's go ahead and arsenal this nice king shark for next turn. So basically optimal arsenal here. And we get to block 6 if they have like a CNC or something here. They have one more, but we shouldn't be too worried about that. So what do we want to do here? World is kind of our oyster. We could give them the Kraken, but I almost want to just hold the Kraken just for a decent arsenal target in terms of just killing them, right? We don't really care about the on-hit. Another nice thing is they really haven't seen their visit the Goldmane Estates, yeah, which is pretty good for us. So let's go ahead and just let them clash again. Pretty likely to lose the clash given composition of the deck. Oh, and there's a visit, which kind of funny that I said that. We just haven't seen any visits yet, so um, getting that clash loss value is actually pretty good depending on how this game ends up going. One thing to note is we did see our first Fate for Scenes. So I think some Victor lists are just on the Fate for Scenes and then not the Staunches. So the variety in Victor lists is actually like pretty high right now. I feel like it doesn't feel like there's like a solved list necessarily just quite yet. It seems like there's a lot of experimentation kind of going on in Talishar. But I think I'm going to go ahead and just give this the yellow hook because we're not going to really get too many more hook activations, I'm guessing, this game. Now, if we lose the hook, I don't think it's really that big of a deal from the spot. Again, I have a hard time imagining that we're going to get too many more hook activations here. Let's see what they got here. So it looks like. All right, so giving us 7 in total here. So what does this mean? I don't know if this means anything really. It would need like double D-React or something. Yeah, I don't know. So it looks like we're connecting with the catch, which would be good because they did just draw a Thunderquake off the top. All right, what are we doing here? All right, we're quick dodging the Thunderquake. Okay, that makes sense. Sure. So we do get our hook value, which is great. So we did get our one last little activation off hook, which is fantastic. All right, double visit in hand, which is pretty good, but we're going to try to kill them before we get to that point, hopefully. Oh, is this another... Wait, did I have the option to send... I don't think I... Did I start with the King Shark and Arsenal? I believe I did. So I didn't really get the option to send the Kraken there, did I? Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, we had the King Shark and Arsenal at the start of the turn. So this is actually ends up kind of being fine-ish, although double visit definitely a little annoying, but they might honestly just be pitching them here, which is kind of funny. So now we have some options for how we can kind of approach this. We have Tunic Counter coming up, so we could just throw the base here. We have to be a little bit careful because the Cranial Crush will turn off our trophy shot, so those aren't really viable options this turn. But I think actually what I like here is maybe just cashing in our base value, going to 8, and then just pitching the trophy shots, or like a trophy shot plus sunken to send Kraken here for 10. I think that's reasonable. It also has the potential to snipe their last visit the Goldmane State should they draw it. So I think I like this play. Cashing in the block value and just kind of playing a tempo game from here because they will have to at minimum give us one card here. It's also a pretty decent use of our Tunic. There is also a play where we try to go for the kill here. Which is also kind of interesting. I think we have just enough gold for it if we want to try to go for it. How many reds do we have? We have 2 3-oaks left of the deck. Pitch a lot of cards. It's turn 9. I think we're going to go for it. If we draw a 3-oak, it's basically game winning. Or if we draw... Okay, well, we draw 3. So that, I guess, kind of seals the deal here. It should seal the deal. But yeah, I was about to say, like, thinking about like what our draws are. If we draw multiple blues, it's obviously great. If we draw three oak, it's great, and we have, two three oaks still left in the deck. So I think we're pretty good odds of us not hitting crash there. And we also saw most of our red harpoons. So I think we've seen all of our red harpoons. So the chances of bricking off those are pretty low. And then I guess we did have like one cheating as a brick, but like overall, our chance of bricking there was actually very, very low. So now we can go ahead and just send in 14, which is basically should be GG's unless they have some other block card and or another fate foreseen or something like that. But at the bare minimum here, they shouldn't be having anything crazy. It looks like they're going to scoop it up there. Let's see what they kind of had left on the deck. So this is looking more like the kind of aggressive Victor. So this kind of style of Victor is like doing less D-Reacts, but more kind of aggression with like the pummels and stuff, which I think this version is maybe like a little bit easier for us than just like the all D-React version, which I think it's so hard to like know what they're going to be running though. I think generally the better Victor lists are going to be running the like D-React plan, but like if you're running the kind of fatigue package into the other variant of Victor, then it gets a lot rougher, right? So you kind of have to like pick your battles on like what's good versus what bad, and like. And I think ultimately it's kind of like a meta call. Like, what do you kind of expect out of calling, and like what are other kind of players playing? But yeah, I guess this kind of is a good video to just show like the variety in Victor deck building, and I think the matchup has gotten a lot tougher just because one, there's so much variety in deck building, but two, I think that the Victor players have kind of figured out the matchup a little bit more. But this is one of the matchups that I think we're gonna have to be a lot more practiced in, just kind of getting our points of value by knowing the matchup, right? But yeah, I think that's probably a pretty good one to end on. All right, everyone. So thank you all for stopping by. Hope you all enjoyed. And again, I wanted to kind of just showcase some of the kind of newer matchups that we kind of have to worry about now that Burdens is out of the meta. We do have a couple new decks kind of popping up. It seems like the meta is maybe going in a lot more of a fatigue direction. So this is my attempt to kind of try to address that kind of meta shift with maybe the Ripple Ways for Victor and also the Burdens of the Past for more fatigue-oriented decks. Unfortunately, we just didn't see a ton of fatigue decks on Talishar Day, which is sometimes kind of just how it goes. So one day we'll resolve Burdens of the Past, maybe not today. But yeah, kind of funny that the first Burdens of the Past video also like kind of didn't do anything. So maybe this card is just bad. But anyways, thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. And yeah, if you have any ideas for Marlin, feel free to let me know in the comments. And yeah, with that, I will see y'all next time. And a special thank you to all the folks who decided it would be a good idea to give us $2 on Patreon. We really appreciate the support, but it's obviously never required.